could have done Fortnite.
Man.
Do you play Fortnite?
No, I don't play Fortnite. But I know it's, one of the most popular things right now.
Well, it was kind of funny because a guy I know, he hit a water main line in his yard. And he's like, yeah, I'm out here playing Fortnite, digging up little blocks of grass, trying to find the leak and replace the pipe and stuff. I was like, oh man, yeah, real life Fortnite is not a blessing.
No, it's not.
So I think we're live now, but let me get over here and just monitor what's happening. So yeah, just wanted to obviously invite you on so people would have I like people to have a face to the person before they meet the face on the person. So I'm going to ask you later to send me a photo of you so I can actually see or share your photo, just so other people who maybe don't see this today can have an idea of who you are. But really, what I wanted to do today was just kind of talk a little bit about who you are, a little bit of like what you've been doing. I think it's been, we were up in Lancaster, and this was 08-ish together, right?
I finished high school 06. I graduated there 09. So somewhere in between there.
Yeah. So man, that was a while ago.
12 years ago.
9 years ago. So you've done a lot. You've done more than I have. I've been in the same place for about the same 9.5 years, but you've been in a couple of states and stuff like that.
Maybe I give the impression I've done a lot because I've moved a lot. It's like the guy who walks around with a clipboard, but there's nothing on there.
If I just stay busy, people will just assume.
They'll assume if I look confused, they'll say he's an important person.
Guy's a go-getter.
Yeah. Yeah, but, most of the keys on my keychain actually don't go to anything, but it gives the impression that I can unlock doors. So we did some really fun work together over in Taft while we were at West Coast and even in Lancaster. Or Lancaster. We have a Lancaster near us, spelled the same, but when I moved here, people pounced on my pronunciation pretty quick, so I got to undo that for this. After there, Anna, we got married just a week after finishing school at West Coast Baptist. Yeah. Moved to Indiana, so I worked in a church there for about 2.5 years, and good experience. I feel like I learned a lot. You learn a lot from just doing, and realized I could use some further training. I got some good training at West Coast, but I could use just some more in some specific areas. So we looked around a little bit and ended up in Dallas, Texas. And I was enrolled at Dallas Theological Seminary. So I got my THM there. Usually a 4-year degree. I squeezed it into 5. So again, that productive nature came out. And then we moved up here. We've been here coming up on 3 years. So October will be 3 years here. And actually, Anna just got accepted. She's in her first week of school at Dallas Seminary online right now.
Wow.
And I'm back in school too. So yeah, we're having fun.
Yeah, she had I think shared a post a few days ago, like the entire family's going to school. And,
yeah.
And tell the folks again, you're heading back to school and the degree and where you're going.
So I'm going to be going to Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. It's over near Boston, a town called Hamilton in Massachusetts. And so it's a doctorate of ministry program. So it's different from a PhD in that it's built for guys who they're practitioners. They're in the field, they're pastors, and they can't just up and leave. And so there's a lot of reading and some projects that I'm working on right now. And then once a year, I have a 2-week residency. So I'm not moving per se, doing it while I'm working. And it's in pastoral theology. It's
nice. Yeah. And the main reason I want you to talk about that is because people that are watching, I want them to understand, like, I love bringing in people to speak to our congregation who are way more qualified.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
No, but I love that. I mean, like a lot of just even watching from a distance. I mean, I think we've talked more in the past year or two than really we did probably in the past like 6-7 years.
That's
But
probably
we would
accurate.
still talk about maybe once every 1 or 2 years. And a lot of that was just out of, I think, a little bit of the relationship we had in TAF, doing that ministry there together. But it's been fun to watch from a distance, and certainly you're not my only friend that's done this, but to watch guys finish a degree, move into ministry, and realize, there's another step to take here. There's more learning that can happen, more expanding my knowledge and capability for the purpose of making disciples, and really just refining the Christians and believers and new believers and even unchurched people that we find trying to navigate questions of faith. And so it's been fun to watch from a distance. You just follow that journey really around a couple different places and seminaries. So you guys are now in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So talk about how great is the chocolate there? First of all,
It's fantastic.
yeah,
This is chocolate town.
yeah,
no, the funny thing is we learned shortly after we came here, Halloween was just coming around, and we found out that there's several people who, if you go to a house and fill up your bucket, the kids go through and they pick out all the Hershey candy and they throw the other stuff away. There's parades here and it's only Hershey. There's no Mars.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a little candy bowl in my office, and I had some M&Ms and stuff in there, and I had someone come in and actually throw those out because it's made by Mars. So it's
Wow.
rivalry.
So there's a huge chocolate prejudice in Hershey.
Prejudice, yeah, that's a strong word, but all right.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah, I mean, if full transparency, I'm a little hurt that I haven't received some direct from the factory Hershey's chocolate from you, but I'll forgive you in Christian love.
Okay,
about that. So let's see. So talk a little bit about, I know your family's in education. Talk about I know you guys have been in a lot of education. You guys have been married for how long?
We just passed a decade this past December.
Wow.
So that was a big milestone. It's been a fun year.
Yeah. Did you guys do anything really special for that, or?
Yeah, we'd never done anything like this before. So we said, hey, 10 years, we got to do something big. So we went out to Cancun and spent,
oh, wow.
I think 3, maybe 4, I think 4 days there.
Wow.
3 nights there. And the funny thing is, we're driving to the airport and we're checking the news on our phones and stuff as we're on the way to the airport. And there's this virus flowing around, somewhere in China somewhere. And we're like, oh, that's kind of strange. But by the time we got back in the States, the world had stopped spinning essentially. So it was kind of the last hoorah before things really hit the US.
So this would have been in January then?
No, it was late February. I think it was late February.
Oh, wow. So yeah.
We came back and got emails that school's done. And
oh my goodness.
It was kind of, whoa, a lot happened. And we leave the country for 3 days. And look what happened.
This is all your fault.
I know. I didn't know this was resting on my shoulders. No wonder I'm so tired.
Yes. So, well, yeah, that's awesome. And you guys have some kids?
Yeah. We have a pink one and a blue one.
Good.
So
yeah,
our son is 7.5, and he's heading into 2nd grade. And then our daughter is 5. She'll be 6 pretty soon. And
okay.
first year of kindergarten.
Yeah,
it'll be
an
interesting start to her schooling with masks and all that. So
yeah,
but she's kids are resilient and they kind of learn quick. So
yeah, totally. Is Anna doing okay sending the baby off to school?
Yeah, we're doing fine. Yeah, we're doing half days. Our school's doing half days, so we'll do stuff at home with them in the mornings, and then the afternoon they get on the bus.
Okay.
And head out. Yeah. So the classrooms will be, I guess, about half full.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, our kids are heading back to school. We had their back to school night over here. Let's see, it's Thursday. That was, I think, Tuesday. And
is it a full day? And is it 5 days?
It's full day.
Okay.
They're also doing live stream. A lot of schools are doing that. I think that are going back in. They're understanding hey, if someone gets sick, we don't want them to miss the educational opportunity. So live streams are great.
Okay.
opportunity that we have to take advantage of right now. So uh, all our kids that are in school will be back on campus,
Okay.
next week. But if something hits a radar kind of thing with the COVID stuff, then they're welcome to like get a access code and watch online until it's all the negative test comes back and all that sort of stuff. So it's I don't know if like a lot of the requirements are as stringent as they are here with schools, but it seems like they're all pretty close, with the way the
Yeah.
teachers are trying to mitigate that liability and spread. So it's
Yeah.
it's going to be an interesting
It
end
will.
to the school for year for sure.
It will be.
So, obviously you mentioned, you guys came back, world stopped spinning. So talk a little bit about how, uh, obviously you're talking about discipleship, as you talk this weekend. So in a lot of ways, this pandemic, this sickness, this thing that we're, trying to avoid, spreading and obviously for people in our church and stuff like that, it's their safety is important to us as well. But also we still have, it's not like the Great Commission goes away. It's not like discipleship is suddenly an option. Certainly the way we're doing that looks different. So talk a little bit about how that has looked different, but also how you've been able to maybe see discipleship continue, the mission of the church still be done, your function as like an equipper, elder, pastor, helping equip people for ministry, shape them, and stuff like that. What are some things you guys have done in some unique ways to continue that process over in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, well, this is happening all across well, probably the world, I guess. I'm just kind of laser focused on our country. But I mean, in some ways, we're being forced to do church in kind of the same way that it formed. I mean, if you were to go to the ancient world and talk to early Christians, they wouldn't really understand what we say when we say church. We point to a building and call it church, or we say, "Hey, are you going to church?" And for them, it was, you don't go to church. It's we are church is people, and so we've tried to pour a lot of resources into our small groups. We're gonna try to form some new small groups this coming weekend on August 30th, uh, which is what in the early church, they were meeting in homes, they were breaking bread in their homes, praying with each other, and stirring one another on to love and good works, as Hebrews tells us, right there in people's homes. And we've been forced out of the building. Most of our small groups take a break over the summer on a typical year. This year, our small groups have been meeting very frequently and supporting one another and doing that hard work of discipleship together with each other. So that's been encouraging to see. That's probably the biggest thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, I love that. I think for a long time we had, not me and you, but I think I do remember us having a level of this conversation, but it always seemed like, probably 10, 15 years ago, there seemed to be this, not understanding, but this kind of perception out on the horizon that it just seems like that small church, small unit gathering will become more and more important. And I think some of that was like observing, the massive evangelism efforts and discipleship efforts you're seeing in countries like India and China and the 1040 window, where the idea of like where you and I have ministered for really years in our context with regards to, hey, let's gather together, let's have a big production worship service and singing and dramas and all of that stuff that we typically have on a Sunday weekend gathering, that suddenly is like, that seems to be like it could possibly be in the future. And but I think everybody always thought that was going to come on the heels of like some government persecution and some stuff like that, not in response to like a virus.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good point. That's a good point.
but I agree. I think it's been really interesting to see the church return to this idea of like, I guess what you could call maybe the first century mechanism, right? Where houses, gathering together, and that's where you see a lot of the spread of Christianity happening. Not that there's anything wrong with the large church gathering. It's just, that's just not really how it started and spread as quickly as it did. So I I would say we find the same to be true. A lot of the discipleship and a lot of the growth that you're seeing is not really on a large gathering on the weekend, it's really that one-on-one or 5-on-1 or 8-on-1 conversation with other people where they're like, man, I need prayer for this, or God's been working on me in this, and really being able to have conversations around like what is being read from the scripture.
Hmm.
And it's exciting. Me and a couple guys were talking the other day, in the Sunday gathering, and I don't know if you guys do this. We haven't really done this for a while, and it's not because I think it's a terrible idea, but like the altar call idea,
Yeah.
where you're calling people to make a decision, which obviously all preaching calls us to a decision, which is great. But, in an altar call, there's just zero accountability, like for the good or the bad decisions, and it's one of the things that I think I've loved watching even within our church is this idea, or not this idea, but this thing that you begin to see where decisions that are made are vocal. They're walked through, they're conversed about, they're wrestled with a little bit, but they're known.
Hmm.
They're a known decision. So I don't know if you guys have like maybe a recent story, and this could be something as not big. We could say maybe you have a recent story of someone coming to faith as a result of this smaller breakdown, or some people making some life-changing, decisions, or a very intentional step towards Christ, just in the past, few months, as this has been going within the shift, that we've all had to make in response from like the large weekend gathering into this smaller knit body, where it's a little bit more conversational, a little bit more communal,
Yeah.
but also way more personal, with regards to discipleship, and however you might break that down. Obviously, discipleship, could be quantified in a lot of different ways, but I think there are some generalities that we could talk about, that mean, yeah, this person's now becoming a follower of Jesus.
Yeah. Well, in some ways, I could share, I don't know, 100 stories. In other ways, I'm not sure I want to, give a name or share too
Oh yeah,
specific of a story.
totally.
Somebody would, hey, wait a second, he's talking about me on live, whatever this is, right? Uh, these live channels. Um, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, discipleship is certainly happening. Maybe in some ways more so than others. There's a lot of divisiveness right now,
Mm.
and there's always things to fight over. Right now, there's 10 times more things to fight over. I can't believe you're wearing a mask. I can't believe you're telling me I should wear one, and on we go.
Right.
And I've personally had some good conversations with people on that. And I've seen others have great conversations where they are completely at odds with one another, and they decide, hey, we're just going to actually talk this out. And then below the surface, you find out there's some good reconciliation going on. I've had conversations personally with people about race, and I've seen others have those conversations. And there's names I could give you of folks in our church who were very much at odds over this, but
Wow.
you know what? They decided to have a conversation about it, and both of them came out stronger for it. So, I mean, all these things, of course, are a form of discipleship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on right now everywhere.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and you talk about a major mark of discipleship is pursuit of unity.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I talked to our church out of Ephesians 4 last weekend, and his whole idea, right, in those first couple verses, as he talks about the apostles and prophets, pastors, shepherds, teachers, evangelists, is unity. It's unity in the mission of uh, preaching the gospel, equipping the saints, walking worthy in your calling. And it's fascinating to watch the current events play out, to the point that I think in a lot of ways, like if you would have talked to people about unity in the sense of discipleship, even 2 years ago, it would have been, I think it would have sat less in culture. And today what we're seeing is that is a huge mark of discipleship, the ability to pursue and achieve unity when you're coming from two total polar opposites, on mask, on police, I mean, on race.
Yeah.
It's just incredible, and it's, I think we would both agree, it's grievous in some ways to watch the disunity, that happens within churches, within Christians, within families, and so I think that's powerful. I mean, to watch two people that are on odds of the issue, and maybe that's a whole nother conversation to figure out, like, how do they do that? Like, where do they find that common ground? But I certainly know, that when you talk about unity in the church, it's certainly because you have a common foundation and a common understanding about who you are and who you belong to. And it's not that that stuff becomes unimportant, but it does become secondary. And so I love that. That's a powerful story, to hear discipleship taking place in that way. It's just interesting. I wouldn't have thought of unity as being such a huge deal, as it relates to discipleship. Typically, you're talking about discipleship, you're like, evangelism, or you're talking about, getting in the word or showing up to community group or just doing the things that Christians do. And yet in light of what's going on in our culture and our country today, unity again returns to the forefront of a mark of a person being a follower of Jesus Christ. So that's great to hear.
And I tell you, that text in Ephesians 4 has been convicting to me lately. That's a high bar, right? With all humility and gentleness, putting up with one another in love. And he says, making every effort to keep the unity of the peace. I'm not sure I've ever made every effort. I mean, can I think of a time where I took every effort? And that's a bit telling of my own willingness to be a disciple of Jesus too.
Yeah, it's almost like he knew, right? It's almost like he knew. Yeah, you guys are hard to put up with. You guys are difficult people. So I'm just going to put this in here in case there's some confusion.
Yeah.
And it's so cool too, to think about, obviously, I think being in full-time ministry, after a while, you can forget how patient people were with you in your process to get where you are. And yet that passage, that text calls us to look back and remember, it took somebody bearing with me to allow God to do what he's done in my life to get me to this place. And obviously there's still more work to do, on my life and in my life. But he says, look, it's going to take humility, and it's going to take effort. It's going to take all sorts of stuff to achieve unity. And I think maybe in some ways, I know in my case for sure, and you look around the climate right now, and it's like people seem to think that unity is just going to come if you'll just see things from my point of view.
Right.
And that's not going to be a unity, Let's see. Talk a little bit about, we're talking about discipleship, and we'll kind of wrap this up. I don't want to take us too much longer, but talk about just some of the benefits of discipleship, maybe in your family, maybe in your life personally. And you can talk as generally and as specific as you want to talk about, but would love to hear a little bit about like what discipleship has produced in you, maybe some things that have changed or some benefits that you've seen of someone investing in you as a disciple.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm not sure if this video is posted before or after the sermon video is. I'm not how familiar people are with the sermon yet that I gave to you guys. I guess what I try to argue is that no matter who we're talking with, we can take a step of discipleship with them, and we're in the process too, right? We're becoming more devoted disciples, and we're trying to listen more than we talk.
Love it.
But I guess here's how I try to think of it. There's all these people in my spheres of influence. Some of them are Christians, some of them are not. Some of them are I don't know, irregular or non-practicing Christians. If it's kind of an oxymoron, I guess. But if you want to say it that way, casual Christians and everyone I'm in contact with, hopefully they're making me better, and I'm trying to make them better. And so I have neighbors right here looking out the window at houses, and I know they have different faiths. They're not Christians per se. They may be of a different faith. And, I've talked about that with them at the bus stop or, while we're walking dogs or whatever. And, not long ago and invited one of them to lunch, and maybe the conversation comes up. And so, there's a step of discipleship that I'm hopefully trying to take with him, and maybe I can learn something about his religion at the same time. Right. And there's people within my church who are mature Christians, who have been mature Christians for many years. And And now we would have never talked about race before, but now we are because of what's going on in Wisconsin and so on and so forth. So I guess I try to see, no matter who I'm talking with, if it's my kids even, I mean, I'm trying to take some step of discipleship in the long haul. I think I argued this in the message, but I think that I made the mistake of assuming that discipleship was, if I can get this person to, I don't know, say a prayer or get dunked or something, there, I did it.
Right.
And I think that I think it caused me not to really value people very much, and to see the long game almost as if, I tried to share the gospel with them. They said, no, I'm going to wipe the dust off my feet. And that was pretty immature of me. I was not as good of a disciple as I could have been myself.
Sure.
So hopefully I'm growing in that way.
Yeah, no, I love it. I was listening to a guy a couple years ago, and he talked about, we have the typical Pauline approach to disciple making, which is like, here's the message, here's the gospel, choose to follow Christ, come from darkness into light. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, I mean, I know for me, when I was 17, preacher preached the gospel, and it was a moment, right? It was a moment in which I made the decision to come from darkness to light. I realized my need of the gospel. But you see a very different ministry with Jesus. Certainly he preached the kingdom, he preached repentance, but he also allowed people to follow along with him, to follow him. And they weren't believers. They had not yet accepted him. I mean, you could probably argue his 12 disciples really weren't believers until they saw him resurrected, on Easter morning, right? So Jesus had this unique model for us. And I love how, relating this, I guess, back to this long game, because I love that term. We tend to think of discipleship as these concrete decisions, and certainly those happen, but it's really a larger part of a much longer exposure and conversation and questions and dialogue than I think we're really prefer, because we're in America, and we like to measure metrics, and we like to give good reports, and we like to demonstrate growth and all that stuff. And so, but Jesus, he would just, I mean, the call to follow Jesus wasn't just for people that were super committed to Jesus. It was really for everybody. And he allowed people to walk alongside of him, to listen to him, to learn from him, to question him, to even attack him in some ways, for the purpose of them eventually realizing he is who he claimed to be. And up until the end, and after the end of his life, he allowed that to happen, for people to believe. And so discipleship being the long game, I love that idea. So I'm excited about the message this weekend, because because I don't want to give too much away, but it's definitely sounds like you're going to deal with that perspective of run the long game with people. I think those people that we tend to maybe lose hope in, we tend to give up praying for. We tend to not really see a lot of potential there for belief or turning and repentance, and just continuing to invest and invest and invest with those people, whether they're mature Christians or immature Christians, or seeking, or questions, or doubters, or skeptics, or brand new, to faith. Just running that long game, because at the end of the day, like you said, discipleship is about a continual turning myself over to Christ. He has to be the axis on which everything in my life turns. And I'm sure me and you together could vocalize, I haven't quite got there yet. I'm not, everything in my life is as maybe Christ-centric as I would say it is. There are pieces of me that still need a conversation with the guy this week over coffee, where I'm going to teach him something, but then his response to that's going to teach me something. And I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that part of me is still not surrendered or turned over yet. So I'm excited to hear the message today. We don't really have any questions coming in, so that's fine. We typically don't, so it's whatever.
I'm not as interesting.
Yeah, it's 8:30 in the morning, so they're probably still getting their cup of coffee, right now. But I did want to say, for those of you that are watching now, and maybe we'll watch a little bit later, obviously Pastor Schatz is going to be sharing his message with us this coming Sunday at 10 a.m. So do a favor. This is about a 30-minute video, so you might say just fast forward to the last 5 minutes or something. and let them know that you'd like them to join you to listen to his message this weekend. I'm excited to hear about it and hear what you've got for us in the area of discipleship. One last question I did want to frame up for you was, and again, not with giving too much away, and I think I know where this might go, but people are going to watch your video. They're going to watch the message this weekend. I like to approach my preaching with the idea of what do I want people to think, feel, and do, right? Okay. And not from a pragmatic, but from like a textual perspective. What I want them to think about God. What do I want them to feel about God? What do I want them to do for God? And I think, as you think about the message, what would be like kind of your hope that someone would walk away with something as a result of hearing this message? And from this weekend.
Yeah, that's a good outline. I hadn't really thought about that. Think, feel, and do. I guess along the lines of just a different way of thinking. Here's one thing I guess I'd encourage everyone who hears to think about is to see people through God's eyes, and specifically by that I mean. So I mentioned some of my neighbors that have a different faith. A few months ago, back when you could talk to somebody without, so I was talking to him, and found out about a little bit about his faith. It's a different faith from Christianity, and I in that conversation I didn't try to convert him or anything. I just wanted to get to know him. But a few weeks later, I found out that he has an acquaintance at his workplace that goes to our church. And so, so-and-so. And
wow.
I don't know, I guess from God's perspective, here's someone who's got, 70 years on this planet. And I'm coming in at year 40 and talking to him, or year 30 or whatever. And somebody else is going to come in. And so it's not up to me. If I can just, maybe my job is just I'm a Christian who's not crazy. He met one uncrazy Christian in this decade, and maybe next decade he'll, so in God's eyes, it's not, God's not dependent on me in one conversation to do maybe anything too miraculous, which is good, because that'd be a pretty bad position to be in, depending on me. And I guess that goes along with feeling, just valuing people, would be the feeling. And then along the lines of do, I guess I talked about this already, but no matter who you're talking with, Christian, non-Christian, mature Christian, whatever, just, just hope that over the course of your relationship with that person, that hopefully you've built into them and made them better over the course of however long you know them. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Have you read a book called Lost and Found, or I Once Was Lost?
No, I haven't.
When we jump off, I'll send you the link over. But he walks through 5 barriers that unchurched people will typically walk through. And fascinating enough, I told our church this a few years ago, and I should probably tell them this more, but it was like something like 85 or 90% of unchurched people don't trust Christians. So the first barrier most unchurched people have to get through is the realization or the understanding or the belief that you and I are reliable, like that we're trustworthy. And usually, like you said, right, with the making them pray a prayer or something like that, we're starting at like step 4, they don't even trust us, and we're over here trying to convince them to make a decision about our faith. And so I love that idea of the Imago Dei, right, where you're going to see everyone as an image bearer of God, and that's not contingent on if they believe like me, think like me, act like me. It's a reality. We are all image bearers of God. So I think that's powerful. I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that and tease that out. So Nik, I appreciate you being on today. We're going to jump offline here live, but I just did want to say real quick, for those of you that are on, for those of you to watch later, maybe give this video a share. We are on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook right now. So share this video, get the word out, invite a friend, host a watch party this weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you Sunday at 10 a.m.